Okay. Hmm. Right, yes, sorry. So, hello everyone, welcome back to World of Tanks. Doing yet another review, I know, another one, but this time it is of the Tetrach. The Tetrach is a wonderful little British light tank that's in the Russian tech tree as a premium, because this was way back in the day before Britain was released, France was released, probably even before America was released. Um, so this was given out like 2012 maybe. I don't know what it said on the wiki, like 2012 possibly, could have been 2011 even, but it was some sort of New Year's gift, I believe. It was given out and it came back as like various came back out as various packages and stuff. And I got this tank as a package with the T7 combat car. As I said in the review, I got it, and then what am I doing? The T7 combat car's like right over here. Why did I go and change? Oh well, that was a dirt by me. But so yeah, I got this in a package. It was New Year's gift package 4 that you could get for £7, and it came 150 gold, 2 garage slots, this and the T7. And a little bit earlier, like before, it was just before December, so it would have been just before the Advent calendar came out. They were doing the special for getting like the most amount of damage or something out of a tank, and the fifth, um, the fifth prize was a Tetrach. You had prizes ranged from like a tier 8 premium to you had this thing, the Czechoslovakian, this thing, the Skoda T40. That was I think might have been the third prize, I think. And then fifth prize was the Tetrach. And so I commented saying, too bad I'm not very good. I said something along the lines of, I would love to participate, however I doubt doing 900 damage in a Panzer II will really help me get the prize, and I really want the Tetrach, so I guess I'll just have to wait until it comes out as a package or something on the gift shop. Guess what? New Year's Day came along, Tetrach T7 combat car in the package. The two tanks I didn't have, Tetrach I commented about just before December. Lord Serb, are you listening to me? So of course I instantly got the Tetrach. Then I was like, woo, Tetrach, because it's a very, very, very good tier 2 premium light tank. And so let's go over it, shall we? So, Tetrach, 140 hit points is terrible. It's like the worst hit points out of all of the tier 2s. I have almost all of the tier 2 premiums by now, I think. But 120 is the universal carrier, and that's a tank destroyer. That's only 20 less than the Tetrach. Panzer II, 170, which is a massive upgrade from the Tetrach. That's 30 more. You got 20 more in the Panzer I. You got a lot more in the Panzer II-D. A lot more in the T26. A lot more in the... Well, you got 20 more in the T1E6. Only 10 more in the T7 combat car. And again, only 10 more in the Light 6C. And these are not very high health. These are also in the low end of the tier 2 hit pool. But, I mean, yeah, it's 30 more for the Vickers. This thing is 180 with the upgraded, so yeah, that's a lot more than the Tetrach. That's 40 more. So it is a very, very fragile little tank, and it doesn't really have very good hit points. It weighs not very much though, only 7.25 tons, which is very lightweight. I mean, it's not as light as the Light 6C, but it's about the same as the Vickers. It's definitely lighter than the light tank version 35 or whatever, that Czechoslovakian one. It's certainly lighter than the T1, than the T26. It's slightly heavier than the Panzer 1, but the Panzer 1 is still very light. It's a lot lighter than the Panzer 2 and the Panzer II-D. Not as light as the Universal Carrier, which is a very, very, very light tank. Because technically the Universal Carrier is not even a tank, really. I mean, it has tracks, but it's more artillery carriage. But yeah, so the hit points, the weight, it is a very, very fragile light tank. And it only has 180 horsepower engine, but because it is so light, it goes along at a blistering top speed of 64 kilometers an hour, which is massively good. Here it is, the Meadows Matte. and it has a power to weight ratio of, where is it, 24.84, which is very, very good. I'm not going to bother comparing it to all of these things because, yeah, Panzer II has worse, worse for the Universal Carrier, worse for the Panzer I, worse for the Panzer II-D, worse for the T-26. T-1E6 is going to be worse if I can get it up. It's worse than the T7 combat car, but yeah, it's actually worse than the T1E6, which is amazing. Better than the Light 6. Better than the Vickers. Better than this thing. Yeah. Do I have the outrated engine? Yes, I do. So yeah, because it's so light, the horsepower of the engine doesn't really matter. It's a very light tank. And because it is so light and it has that engine power, it has a 47 degrees per second hull traverse, which is very good. It allows you to be very, very nimble. However, the armour is nothing. Like I said, it's very fragile. 16 at the front, 14 at the side, and 10 at the rear of both the hull and the turret. Which means that you're not going to bounce any shots. You really want to keep at range, or at least finish off things that you can easily 1- or 2-shot kill very quickly before they even know what's hit them. So, yeah. The gun that it has is a 2-pounder without the Little John adapter, so it doesn't have the massive penetration, but you wouldn't really need that fighting tier 3 tanks. The 2-pounder that's on here is very good. It's also mounted with a 7.62 Baser machine gun, but that doesn't work because what of tanks. But here is the gun. It is the 2-pounder Mark 9A, and I believe that's the same as what's on the Matilda. If we come over here, Matilda, here it is. No, that's the Mark 10. Oh, I swear there's a Mark 9 2-pounder somewhere. 6-pounder, 3-pounder, 2-pounder Mark 9. Here you go. Which is a worse version, apparently. It's an inferior version, apparently, on the Vickers Medium 3. But here it is, mounted on a Tier 3 tank. And the gun on the Tetrach is apparently Tier 4. So they're both 40mm because that's the 2-pounder gun. The Tetrach has an inferior rate of fire of 21 compared to the 28.57. They both have the same average penetration of 64 and 121, yep, with APCR. 23 with high explosive, 45 average damage, 60 with high explosive. It's slightly more inaccurate and slightly longer to aim. So, yeah, it is inferior to the Tier 3 gun. But if we look at the Vickers Medium 2, or in fact, let's look at it on. It won't be on the Stuart, will it? What about the Cruiser? Mark 9. Is it the same? Oh no, it's different. It's still inferior. So, it's inferior to the British guns that we have now, but at the time it would have been a very, very good gun. I mean, looking at it, comparing it here, just without looking at any other British gun, 21 rounds of rate of fire is pretty good. 64mm of penetration is very, very good at Tier 2. After all, Tier 2s only see Tier 3s. It's not until Tier 3s that you start going up against vehicles that are, 2 higher than your own tier. So, yeah, the rate of fire is pretty good. The average penetration is enough to get through Tier 2s and Tier 3s. Don't forget that another 40mm gun that we have is on the Toldy 3 here. And looking at it, let's get up the Tetrach here quickly. So looking at it compared to the Tetrach's 2-pounder, which is also 40mm, the Toldy 3 has an inferior rate of fire. It has an inferior dispersion rate, so it's more inaccurate. It has the same penetration with standard AP, and it has the same average damage. Like I said, more inaccurate, less rate of fire, but it's slightly better at aiming, 2.1 compared to 2.3. But this gun is mounted on a Tier 3, which sees Tier 5s. This gun is mounted on a tier 2 which only sees tier 3s, so 64mm of penetration is pretty much overkill down at tier 2 in the Tetrach. Tier 3, this thing does become slightly more useless, but for the Tetrach, this gun is very good. The penetration's decent. I mean, it is death of 1,000 cuts with only 45 average damage, but once again, tier 2, it's only going to take 4, 5, 6 shots to kill something down at this lower tier, so yeah. It's pretty inaccurate of 0.4, but I suppose you can work your way around that. The aiming time is slow-ish. 2.3 seconds is not bad, but it's not good. It's sort of average. And of course the machine gun doesn't work. But for what it is and what it's shooting at, it is decent enough. It's useful enough. Turret reverse is pretty good, 41 degrees per second. The view range is 260, which is actually not really that good. I mean, all of these tanks that I'm clicking on right now have got better view range than 260. The Tetrach really is lacking in view range. I mean, T1E6 is terrible, and that has the same view range. I mean, the T7 combat car is rubbish. Light 6C is better. Vickers better. This thing better. I mean, the Tetrach really is a very blind tank. As for the signal range, though, the signal range is pretty good. I mean, it's only tier 2, but having, how much signal range? 545 down at tier 2 is very good. I mean, the Panzer II does. I like the signal range on this tank. I'm researching signal boosting, so the signal range is going to be up. But I mean, for me, spotting the targets with 421 meters view range, I can relay that to the rest of my team. I mean, even though it's only 455 meters signal range, I mean, still. Please ignore Steam for a moment. But yeah, so the signal range is pretty good. The view range, not so much. You've got your regular consumables, and as for the equipment, improved vents, yes, going to be useful. Light spore liner, no. You're a thinly armoured tank. Caminet, go on. You'll probably do very well sniping as this tank. Same with binos as well. Coated optics to get that view range up, I would say yes. Probably the same with binos as well then. Enhanced gun lane drive you don't really need. I mean, 2.3 seconds is not that good, but it's still not that bad. You can probably work with it. I mean, if you do want to equip it, then sure you can. I won't hold it against you, but I may hold off on that. And toolbox is always useful. As for the crew, it's a crew of 3 Russian people here apparently. Hang on. Okay, sorry about that. So, Sixth Sense is going to be useful with this tank. If you get spotted, you will die fairly quickly because A, you have no armor to protect you, and B, you have the lowest amount of health of any tier 2. I mean, there are probably tier 1 tanks that have the same, if not slightly more, maybe, hit points, so yeah. So Sixth Sense is going to be very useful. Signal boosting is going to help this tank get that pretty good signal range up even more, so yes, definitely. Situational awareness, definitely get your view range up, so that it will be at least fairly decent. Relay, yep, definitely go with that. I mean, you do have very good signal range, so if you want to be a spotter, relay will definitely help. Call for Vengeance as well, going to be pretty useful. You do have a pretty good signal range, so lots of tanks will be able to get to you and see those vehicles when you die. Eagle Eye is always useful, so definitely go with Eagle Eye if you want. Jack of all trades, possibly. Recon, yep, definitely get your view range up. And Mentor, I don't really see a point in that. As for the gunner is also the loader. The commander is also the radio operator, if I didn't already mention that. So for the gunner here, I am going Deadeye because getting death of 1,000 cuts is always useful. Is always even more enjoyable, should I say, when you kill all of their crew and or modules at the same time as doing that death of 1,000 cuts, because Deadeye is always a very useful skill. I do love that skill. Designated target, yep, that'll allow you to get one more shot at that target, so definitely go with designated target if you want. Armourer, if you don't want to use repair kit. Prove accuracy during turret rotation, yep, that's not such a bad choice. I mean, you can circle strafe in this tank, you can do drive-bys, you can do all of these things, so definitely snapshot if you want. Intuition, you shouldn't really have to skip to APCR. In fact, I don't even know why you're carrying APCR, because your armor piercing is overkill at tier 2 and probably also at tier 3, so probably don't bother getting intuition, probably don't even bother loading up APCR either. Adrenaline Rush is always useful. With the amount of autocannons down at tier 2 and tier 3, Adrenaline Rush, you will be left on 10% of your hit points a lot, which is about 14 for this tank, so yeah. Safe storage if you want, possibly. It's always useful. As for the driver, I am going off-road driving because off-road driving is always a useful skill to have. Clutch braking, you don't necessarily need it, but if you want to be even more manoeuvrable, sure, go with that. Preventive maintenance, if you want. Smooth ride, sure, you can do drive-bys, you can do circle strafe. Smooth ride will probably help you with that. Controlled impact, no. Don't know why you're ramming stuff. You don't have the armor or the health to do it, so no, don't bother getting controlled impact. And then for all of your crew, you have the regular skills. So overall, I would say either A, sit back and snipe because you do have the penetration to do it, and you do want to keep out of sight for as long as possible in this tank because of your terrible armor and your low amount of hit points. But if you don't want to do that, then be a fast light tank that goes down the sides, that goes down the flanks even, or during late game, head through and hunt down that artillery, hunt for tanks that are already preoccupied, and aim for their sides and rears and do the circle strafe or do drive-bys, because those are the two most effective ways of using this tank. So I will thank you for watching, and goodbye.